Welcome to the Firehouse Roundtable podcast, brought to you by the Ventura Fire Foundation. My name's Peter McKenzie. I'm one of the hosts. I'm a retired fire captain with the City of Ventura Fire Department.
And I'm Jason Kay. I'm an active fire captain also with the Ventura Fire Department.
And we are excited that you are going to spend some time with us at the kitchen table, learning about firehouse issues that we're trying to bring awareness to.
Thanks for joining us as we discuss the issues of being a firefighter, both on and off duty, and how it affects us.
Let's get right to it. How's it going, Jason?
It's going good. How's your week?
I'm doing good, yeah. I'm excited for this episode of the podcast. I think a lot of people have had the opportunity to work for Myles, and then his stepson, Austin. He was my engineer for a while. We had some good times together, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Myles was one of my captains early on, and then also when I was an engineer, he was one of my captains, and it kind of reminds me of my son and I, where my son's trying to become a firefighter, and Myles' stepson did become a firefighter with our agency, so this will be good.
Oh, that's so cool. How is that coming along with your boy?
It's good. He's in shift 13 of his internship for paramedic school. We can all remember where we were during that time. And, a lot of stress and a lot of time and drilling. And he's doing good, though. He'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Where is he doing his internship?
He's with Arcadia Fire for his internship. And then he works as an ambulance operator with Glendale Fire right now as a single function EMT.
Oh, awesome. Well, I wish him best of luck in that for sure. All right. Well, we should probably get into the show. All right. Welcome to the show, Myles and Austin. We're excited to have you both here.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Happy.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of Ventura City Fire Department history sitting in front of us in the form of Myles Smith. Also, Austin, who is stepson of Myles, which is cool, which we're going to talk about as well. But I think for the sake of our listeners, Myles, why don't you take a couple of minutes? I'm sure the majority of our listeners know exactly who you are, but there's some people who won't. So just introduce yourself. Give us a little bio on you, if you don't mind.
A little bio. Okay. I became a fireman in 1981 here under Chief Bobby Horn. My first captain at Station 2 was a guy named Frank Beauregard. I was a fireman for 10 years. I promoted to engineer in 1991. I was an engineer for 9 months during the LA riots. I got to watch it on TV. And then I was promoted to captain soon after that. And I was a captain for close to 24 years, 25 years, something like that, mostly downtown. I started my career before that. I worked on the hand crew for LA County. My father was a firefighter and a captain for LA County for 38 years. And then soon after I became a fireman, my younger brother got on the fire department in Inglewood. They got absorbed by LA County, so he wanted to becoming a battalion chief for LA County Fire Department. I was the black sheep of the family. I worked for Ventura City, but I was more than happy to be working up here. Before I got on, you had to have a college degree to even apply, and I didn't have a college degree. So I went on to the hand crew, and then they started a reserve program in the city in about 1977, 78. And I was a commercial diver at the time, and I was working for myself, so I had plenty of time, working for the fire department. So I really had a good time doing that, and that kind of evolved into becoming a firefighter with the city of Ventura in 1981. And it was a thrill of my life. I still have the introduction and the congratulatory letter on my wall.
That's awesome. Originally, Peter said that we had some history with the fire department. I'd counter that and say we have some legend with the fire department. I know Myles would hate that for me to say that. I got the honor of being on your crew for a little while, a couple times.
I'm well known for some interesting things, and none of them all good.
Yeah, and at the same time, we have Austin on with you, and Austin is on the board of directors with us for the Fire Foundation. Austin, do you want to give a quick intro on yourself?
I've been with the Ventura City Fire Department now just about going on 7 years. Currently working as an engineer at Station 1 off the Avenue, continuing the legacy with Myles at that station there. Super happy to be able to continue the fire legacy that's been in Myles' family and to continue that and grow with it, not just within the fire service itself, but within the city of Ventura. I've been a medic for 14 years prior to that, working in Ohio on the private ambulance. Born and raised in Ventura, and I'm loving every minute of where I am right now.
Anything you want to say about why you joined the foundation?
I think we started foundation just prior to your injury, but seeing the way that the family kind of came together, the fire family came together, was able to help. I remember you guys were doing your floors, and you were kind of in the middle of a remodel and just watching how the fire family came in and redid your floor and the experience with you. And then I wasn't quite part of it when John Van Manicus had his illness, but then I saw what the potential growth for that was and what we were able to do for him and his family, and what you guys did for my family. And I just wanted to be able to give back from what my family was able to receive, and I want to be able to be part of it and give back to the rest of the families that are in need.
Both of you got into it from the history of your families. That's pretty cool. Myles, you want to tell us maybe a couple of your best crews that you'd say for different reasons?
Some of the best crews. Austin's real fortunate right now. His captain is Grant Ellison, who was my engineer for a few years here at Station 1. Great guy. Working down on the Avenue was a blast. I really enjoyed that. The thing about working on Ventura Avenue as opposed to working at the East End or in more affluent areas down the Keys or on Ondulando or Clear Point, I got the sense that the people were more appreciative of us because we were their primary health care, really. For a lot of people, they called us for everything, and they were appreciative. And I tell the story or a comparison, like if I'm going into a call up on the hillside in a more affluent area, the people, when you come to the door, say, "Oh, don't let the poodle out, wipe your feet before you come in." And they feel like this sense of entitlement, whereas you go on the Avenue and they're just happy to see you. And, you get so much reward and fulfillment out of working on the Avenue with people who really appreciate you and do what you do. They come in to visit, whereas at Station 4, they're going by at 50 miles an hour. They don't even know the station is there. But we have a lot of people coming and visit, and that was I got a lot of enjoyment out of that part of it too, just being part of the local community.
Myles, I know you were kind of known for working on the Avenue, and it seems like a lot of those guys who worked on the Avenue kind of stayed there for a lot of their careers. It's cool that Austin is now kind of following that same footsteps and joining you on the Avenue. And I look at the crews when you go into Station 1, there's pictures of some of the old crews that were there from, probably, what is that picture of Andrews and Wynell? And that picture's been up since before I was hired.
Yeah, it's funny. Some guys hate it and some guys just love it down there. As it is now, everybody gets up at night, but it used to be, Station 1, it was, 1 and 2 and 5 were busy stations. And if you're out at 4 or 6, you got to sleep all night. That's not the case anymore.
First due in the zoo, right? That's how it's always been known. Super busy.
Yeah.
How about some other names that you could tell me, some of the other crews that you had, that some of the retirees that are still around? Do you see any of those guys that you worked with? Or
the captains that I worked with down there? Mike Vaughn, real character. I got a phone call, a text out of the blue a couple of days ago from Doug Carriger, who was an assistant chief here when I first came on, and just out of the blue. And it was a weird thing. Like, he started the text by saying, "Hey, Myles, this is Doug," and it was so out of character for him because he wasn't a real friendly guy, and he wasn't my best friend. I was a fireman and he was an assistant chief, so we didn't have a close relationship. But he called me and I don't know, he might have heard about my injury or something and was just calling to check up on me. But it was really out of character for him to call me, and he's going to come out and visit here in a couple of weeks. I guess he's got family out here, and that's going to be a real interesting get together, because I wouldn't really call him a friend. He was more of a colleague, but now we're both retired, and it's going to be a different kind of a conversation. But all the old timers know who Doug Carriger was. They probably would think that's out of character too, for him to call somebody and say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah. So speaking of that, how long were you on the department? And what year did you end up, maybe talk about what happened with your injury and how that led to your retirement?
Oh boy. I started in 81, became a captain in 92, worked majority of my career down on the Avenue, like we were saying. When I was a firefighter studying for captain, I was working on the hazmat team at Station 3. I got promoted when they put a captain on the truck under Vern Hamilton was the chief. Before that, we had an engineer and a fireman on the truck. They wound up putting a captain on the truck, so I got one of those spots. Wound up working at Station 5 for a while as a captain, but I always wanted to migrate back down to Station 1. I got an opportunity to get back down there, and I stayed. I went out a few times under request of a chief to go to another assignment temporarily, but I always wound back at Station 1. That's where I really like to work. There was a good area to work. You got to go up on the coast highway. Work with Station 25 up there. Got to go to Ojai.
Some people would say you have a sick addiction.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was fun. So getting to my injury was 2014. Simple little nothing fire on the in the river bottom that we go on all the time. But I've told my firefighters, constantly, the most dangerous medium that we work in is on the freeway, especially at night. I mean, cars zipping by, they don't pay attention. So I'm always extra high alert when I'm on the side of the freeway. And we had a little rubbish fire down in the river bottom. I'm pulled over the curb on the freeway, Ojai Freeway there, 33 southbound, just past Shell. And I'm standing on that little berm curb that they make out of asphalt. And they had a little bit of asphalt, on top of it that was loose. I'm standing there and I'm putting on all my safety gear. And last thing I remember, I'm putting on my radio, had my helmet on, my chin strap tight, and I was just putting on my radio. And I just slipped a little bit, facing the engine with my back to the river bottom, just slipped a little bit. And I rolled back, and I'm thinking, knowing that the hillside was all brush, I thought, well, I'm going to roll back up to my feet. Nobody's going to see me. I won't be embarrassed. Little did I know there was a cutout for a storm drain underneath, and I fell 12 feet onto concrete down below that. Luckily, I didn't break my neck, but I broke a bunch of other stuff. Broke my arm in a couple places, compound fracture of my lower right arm, fractured my pelvis, rang my bell pretty good, but I was conscious the whole time. And so it was Luke Mitchell was the engineer, and I'm laying there face down, and I couldn't really move, and I could hear some homeless guy saying, "Hey, he's over here, because they didn't know. I just went down through the brush. They didn't know where I was. They thought, I guess they assumed I was off checking the fire or checking the perimeter. I remember I had my eyes closed, but I hear the homeless guy call over to Luke Mitchell, and then I'll hear Mitchell go, "Oh shit!" Obviously, when he saw me and saw the disaster at the bottom of the drainage there. And the rest is history. I spent 8 days in the hospital. I spent almost 2 months in a care facility after that. I had a pretty good recovery. I was back hiking again and doing things, and then I wound up getting a small little cut on my leg on a Christmas Eve when I was making I'm making a skateboard ramp for my grandson for Christmas, and the thing never healed. And I thought, well, what the heck is going on here? This is right at the end of my workers' comp deal where I'm going to retire, and then it's going to settle everything. And so my lawyer says, well, I get a workers' comp doctor, and we'll look at this. That thing is still not healed. It's been 7 years almost, and I still have an injury on my leg that I go to with wound care, 3 to 4 days a week sometimes.
Did they end up saying that it was workers' comp? Did they give you workers' comp for that one too? Good.
Oh yeah. That was all workers' comp, and I was satisfied with the way it worked. It went well. It went smooth. The city was cooperative, and I was happy with the settlement. I do have a service retirement also, so I'm financially I'm set all right. But
okay, good. Couple things about your injury that you touched on that I remember specifically is I saw your X-ray, and I was kind of blown away with the amount of hardware that you got to keep. And I said, Myles, have you seen that thing? And you said, nope, and I don't want to. So do not show it to me yet. Have you seen it at this point?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's impressive. It needs to be hung on the wall or something.
Yeah. I have a disc of all the X-rays, and I was going to blow one up and put on the wall, but those times are gone. I'm trying to move on now. I have a new one now. They cut my leg off 3 months ago for another thing. And so they found an aneurysm behind my leg during all this other process of all these medical procedures I was going through. And they said, oh, well, we'll take care of this thing. They're going to do a prophylactic surgery and just do a little bypass here. No problem. Well, that didn't go well, just like all my other ones didn't go well. And so they wound up amputating my lower right leg in May. And so I'm dealing with that. But I'm happy. I'm amazingly not depressed and moving forward. I'm missing fishing because I still can't get into a kayak and can't get out and move around yet. I'm still not qualified for a prosthetic yet because I still have some injuries that are still healing but I'm ready to get back on the road and get back up on 2 feet again.
You've always been happy-go-lucky, excited when that bell goes off, always had like a great attitude. And clearly you didn't retire under the circumstances that you would have preferred. I mean, I think that's clear. But you're such a positive guy. When a lot of the guys retire, they go through a difficult time where maybe they are a little depressed, or they basically are in this firehouse world where there's a lot of support, and then they retire, and then they're kind of on their own, not a lot of support. Arguably, clearly the same thing happened to you, but your attitude throughout it all has been amazing. Can you talk to that? Because I know that there's, we're going to have retirees that listen to this, or guys that are preparing to retire, and it's a struggle for some people. Just interested in your perspective on how you dealt with it, or it's maybe some of the feelings you work through, or just that kind of thing.
There was never a time, and I still am fascinated by that. There was never a time that I was depressed, and people say, "God, you're so strong, Myles. How do you do it?" My answer to that is, there's no alternative. You can either, move forward and get on with your life, or you just collapse into a puddle of piss and not be able to function at all, and just, woe is me. That's never been me. I am real fortunate to have a really loving family. My wife is just so terrific. She takes great care of me, and she's so caring. And in the fire department, you guys have supported me all the way. When I was in the hospital, when I was in the care facility for 2 months, I was treated like royalty by the hospital, and then everybody that came in, from city council members to, just friends and people that knew about me and people that heard about my incident. Everybody's just been really wonderful. And so I've never been alone and never been lonely. And I've always had a supportive group around me that's always been positive. I guess I surround myself with positive people as opposed to people that are down in the dumps. And so that probably it has a lot to do with it. Just my general environment is happy, and
gotcha. I like that.
Happy and energetic moving forward.
When you were at what was the name? Was it the Californian? I think it's changed.
Yeah. I was at the Californian on the first one. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were there, when I heard you were there, I was like, oh, isn't that ironic? Because I think it was there that you helped pour like a concrete pad or something, right?
The association did a thing over there. We poured concrete slab for this vegetable garden over there. Yeah, that was, and they remembered me for sure. Yeah, Susan Montgomery, bless her heart. Susan Montgomery was a real big instigator there. I've known her for a long time, and she was real active over there with the seniors. Yeah, and she wanted to build a vegetable garden, and she came to me and says, "Hey, can we do something like that?" And I said, "Darn right we can. That's exactly what the association would do."
Yeah, she had a soft spot for the fire. I think was a family member of hers was a firefighter at some.
Yeah, she did have some family member back east. Firefighters. Yes, and she was a sweetheart. You can't say no to her anyway. So
yeah. She was a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, she was a great person to work with, and so we did that over there. And then it was only like a year or so later that I wound up being over there, and I had a room that looked right out onto that garden too.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And then when you were going through the whole leg amputation thing a couple months back, and the fundraiser was put on for you at Made West, that to me was just like a testament to who you were. Because when I showed up there. What was that like? What did that feel like when you showed up and you saw all that?
Well, first thing I thought these were all people that were there just for lunch and beers. They weren't there for my event. And I thought, well, ours is going to start in an hour or so or something like that, because I just came and parked off to the side. And then I started recognizing everybody. I go, holy smokes, this thing is for me. I was just so humble and just so appreciative for everything. Everybody has just been so forthcoming, so giving to me all along. I'm very fortunate to have a good group of people and a lot of friends around me, and the fire service and the Firemen's Association from Ventura County, Ventura City, Oxnard. All those guys are there and just do whatever they can for me. And so I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, you for your whole entire career would never say no to anybody, and you would, if somebody needs something, you were there to do it.
Yeah, I think I get the sense that that's what Austin is doing too. I always hear that he's not the guy that says no too. So that's a good thing that I've instilled in him.
Yeah.
And just real quick, I'd put a lot of praise on Ackerman and Sunshine and some of those people who made that fundraiser really kick ass for you, man. They really worked hard. That was awesome. And of course, the pipe band. Can't forget those guys.
Okay. The pipe band. That's right. It always brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah, that you got some Irish or Scottish in you somewhere then.
Hey, this is Joe Booth from the Ventura Fire Foundation. To learn more about the foundation and our programs, visit our website at www.venturafirefoundation.org. 100% of our funding comes from generous donors. And if you like what we're doing, I encourage you to become a donor. It's very easy. Just go to our website, again that's venturafirefoundation.org, and click the red donate button at the top. Whether it's $5 or $5,000, every donation helps ensure local firefighters thrive.
So let's move to Austin. What was it like to kind of be mentored by Myles, and then also Myles' side of that too? So where you come from, how you got into the fire service, you got into that a little bit, and then kind of what Myles did for you in a mentorship role.
I mean, you've been in my life, Myles, for like a while. Pretty much since I was
young. Well, let me start off by saying I was friends with his dad, Dick Foulke, before I wound up marrying his wife. He divorced, and Charnel was divorced for, 13, 14 years. But I'd known them both all that time, and we're friends with them. I have pictures of Austin in my turnouts when he was about 5 years old.
That's
and
cool.
Just at a gathering with all of us mutual friends. I came into his life full time. When was that? 2000? I think we got married, and I think I wound up going out with his wife in 1999 or something like that.
But I was about 13 when you guys got married. But I still remember that. I remember that day that I got that birthday party that I got into your turnouts, and that photo that we have now.
Yeah.
I vividly remember that. But it was in high school when I was trying to decide whether I'm going to a 4-year university. Even though my grades didn't say you're going to a 4-year university, I didn't quite go to school too much back then. But I did a couple of write-outs with him in high school, and I knew kind of the medical field was going to be more of my career path. And when I think it was you, Mendoza, and Dingman.
Oh, yeah.
And Dingman and Hoffman. And I was like just rolling through the avenue, and then you had some people just waving at you all happy. And just when we were running through the calls, and just the amount of service and the appreciation that community had for you, I think I remember just at one moment I said, no, this is what I'm doing. And then from there on out, it wasn't like a straight hands-on, you should do this and this and this. You're like, a good idea is this. And you kind of let me find my own path. And you were there to kind of kick me back onto the path when I was falling off of it. But yeah, I've been at 19 years old. I was an EMT already working for Lifeline up in Ojai, and I got my medic license young, and just you kind of gave me hints of where I should go next, but it was never, which I think is beneficial. I think most people should learn on their own and not be completely, have their hand held completely all the way to the front door of your interview panel. But it was a long, drawn-out progress. I didn't get hired until I was 30 years old, and I got hired at the department I've always wanted to work for, the department that inspired me to become a firefighter, and that's where I am now.
That's cool. It sounds like Myles kind of went through the right stuff. I'm doing kind of the same stuff with my son now, where you can guide them, but ultimately they're going to make their own decisions anyway, right? So just make it look good for doing the right thing.
People just aren't cut out to be a fireman too. I see some kids, and I can't imagine. I can't tell you how many kids came through the office say, "Hey, I want to be a fireman," and you sit them down there and talk to them, or their mom brings them in, or their dad brings them in to talk to you about the fire service. Some of them just don't have it. They're doing it for the wrong reasons, or they're investigating it for the wrong reasons. They just don't. They don't have that same feeling that I did going into the fire service. Firefighter are held in such high esteem, and you breathe such rarefied air when you're up with this. how you're perceived by the community, and I covet that and want to protect that. And so you want to always have your best foot forward, and you guys know this. When we go camping, if you're a campground and they know you're a fireman, everybody's going to come over you because you probably got the tools, or you probably know how to fix it, or your buddy's done it before. That's the kind of people we are, and that's the kind of people that we promote, and that's the kind of people that we want to hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk in the past about, you brought up that crew, Myles, Mendoza, Hoffman, Dingman. Man, that's the quintessential Station 1 crew when I was, in my first maybe 10 years. But we always expected all four of you guys to be there in some capacity all the time for sure and together.
And working with Hoffman and Mendoza was always a treat because they're both really funny. But Mendoza is funny in a Cro-Magnon kind of way, and Hoffman is brilliant. And so they both are really funny, and I'm just trying to play the straight man. And Mendoza is cracking a joke that's really legitimately funny, and then Hoffman will come and shred him, and he doesn't even know what happened to him. It was constantly with this guy. That was part of the fun.
Yeah, let's keep going down that path. I got a question for you, and this wasn't planned, and it kind of just hit me while we were here. Part of the podcast that I had vision for was documenting stories of our guys for posterity, right? Like, so long after we're all gone, someone's going to know who Myles and Austin is if they get a hold of this podcast and hear the stories. But I think what we have lost, I'd say most of it's been lost, is the generation above yours, right? Like people that when you just got on the fire department, they were the old guys, or maybe they were already gone and you heard the stories at the at the kitchen table, right? Those stories, like I don't know those stories, and definitely the new guys that are coming on now have no idea of those stories. So I don't, not to put you on the spot, but can you muster up any stories of old retired guys when you first started? I don't know if there's a couple that stand out, but let's give those guys a voice.
My first crew was at station. The one that I really remember at Station 2 was Dave Frost, Glenn Gudaz, and Don Hoopengarner. They all smoked. In those days, you could smoke in the station, and they had ashtrays between each chair around the TV. We have the Barca lounges or whatever, the easy chairs. There was an ashtray between each one, and for years, that's just what you did. I mean, when I worked with Cecil Newton at Station 5, he'd have a cigarette and a lighter next to the bed. Tones go off, gets out of bed, lights a cigarette, and he's smoking cigarettes. He's going down the pole from station so you go down behind him, you're going through a cloud of smoke. But that was a big difference back then. Is guys were heavy smokers, hard drinkers. There was a few guys, they were left before I got there, but they'd go to Lowe's Town and Country right out of Station 2. They'd just go down the street and go right to the bar. The schedule was a lot different then too. I mean, before I got there, they didn't have you guys have a different now. I had a 4-3 when I was doing it. We had alternate 4 days off of it, or alternate. What was it? Alternate 4 and then had 4 and 6 off. Before that, they only had 2 shifts. And so that I don't know exactly how they did it, but it wasn't the same kind of fire service as when I got there.
And I know every once in a while, guys will go back in Station 1 and still look at those logbooks from the early 1900s. And
there's a kick out of reading those old logbooks.
Couple things you said that I haven't thought about in a long time either. Frost used to tell me that in the commissary at the stations, there were cigarettes, full strength sodas.
We used to have 16-ounce Pepsis delivered, and we had a separate refrigerator just for Pepsis. The Pepsi truck I would come with 16-ounce bottles of Pepsi, and we had Pepsis. We used to test all the radios, all the handheld radios, and all the station radios, engine radios every day, twice a day. And the newspaper used to come in the afternoon. And so when the newspaper came, that was kind of the end of the day. We'd go and we'd play the pea bottle and play this dice game. And usually for who's going to cook, who's going to go cook, or who's going to do the dishes, who's going to clean up this or that. And there used to be a rule that you couldn't set the brakes on the engines in the apparatus floor. I think that stems back from when brakes got hot and they would warp the drums, if you left them set after you pull back in hot. That's the only thing I can imagine. But we weren't allowed to set the brakes on the air brakes on the engines in the apparatus floor. We just have a little piece of wood trim, like a little piece of quarter round, we put in front of the rear tire to keep it from rolling out of the station. No kidding. One time it rolled out. I'm sitting in the station. There's a big window there at Station 2, and all of a sudden the engine starts going by out to the street. We ran over there and set the brakes and got out. But that used to be a rule, and we used to follow that rule.
I never heard that before.
And then when I first got on, we used to ride the tailboard too, and we had a strap called the Newton safety strap because Cecil Newton fell off the engine one time back there. So they put on some straps for everybody, and they call it the Newton safety strap, so we wouldn't fall off the tailboard. But that was a whole nother story. The tailboard was a lot of fun back in the day.
When did that go away?
Boy, when the design of our engines went away, I think probably in probably 85 or something like that. Because we had a few engines, reserve engines that had a tailboard, and we had a 41 Seagraves. It was a reserve engine at Station 4. We put it in service once in a while when we run out of engines, and that had a tailboard on it. And you'd be out there in the rain, just put the hose cover over you and just hang on.
That actually sounds like fun.
It was fun. It was fun. That's what the firemen did. People are waving at you. You come up next to you at the stoplight and just talking to you. Oh, it was a blast. Just like the Tillerman kind of a thing now. If the Tillerman's back there, people are trying to talk to you. And yeah, same kind of thing.
Yeah. Two things I want to talk about. One, your dinner order at Corrales, and then two, what your actual name is, right? So let's talk about Corrales. So this is how you know someone in the fire department, when you know the stories before they tell them, when you know what they're going to eat, what they're going to order. You have the same damn order every time you go to Corrales. So
we had a rotation. We go to Corrales, and I get corn burritos and a hamburger, I think is what I usually got. And we go to Hamburger Habit was one, and a couple other ones that we'd hit. I used to be a cook. I was a permanent cook at Station 5 when I was a fireman for about 6 months. I forgot who the captain was, but when I got a new captain, they put an end to that. But I was I didn't have to pay for my meals, and I didn't even have to go on calls. Back then, we had the 4-man engine companies. And so if they left on 3 guys and we had a pickup, then if they needed me, they'd call me. And so I would cook all day. I'd cook lunch and dinner. I'd cook and baking cakes and pies and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about your cooking, because I'm going to throw Austin we're going to throw Austin under the bus here for a second, because I have had your halibut crusted with the mayonnaise, right? And me and Austin worked together for a while before I left. And I was like, Austin, you got to get the recipe for that, and you got to cook it. He goes, I got it. I already know. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And he didn't know. The reality is he didn't know. So he tried to make it, and I was like, yeah, this is great, but this isn't what it was. So give us that recipe for that fish, because there's a lot of guys on the department who know that fish and would love to replicate it, but he didn't have the recipe. So let's hear it.
It's really simple. All it is just mayonnaise, regular mayonnaise, and shredded Parmesan cheese. Mix it together, make a slurry out of it, and just put it over a fillet, and not too thick of a fillet, maybe an inch thick fillet, probably 4 or 5 inch square, and just cover it like frosting a cake, and put that on there and just put it in the oven for maybe 10 minutes at the most, because you just get a little like a meringue brown on the top of that, and that's all it is. And maybe and sometimes you can put a clove of garlic in there with it, or a little sprig of rosemary or something to liven it up or change it. But basically, a little garlic salt and then put that on.
That's awesome. I didn't know it was that easy.
Simple. It is.
Austin, you should.
Don't think too hard, and don't overcook it. Don't leave it in there for 15
don't overcook the fish ever, right? Austin's a really good cook. I've had some of his meals too. But Myles, you were outstanding as a cook. I'll tell a quick story. When it was you, me, and Westbrook at Station 1, you said, hey, I'll cook something tonight. And when you cooked something, I was like, yes, we're having a good meal tonight. And Westbrook, I think, was a rookie. And he goes, oh, no, Cap, I'll cook something. And I took him aside. I never told you this. And I go, hey, when Myles says he's going to cook something, don't say you're going to, because it's a treat. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Tell us about, because your real name is not Myles.
Well, that's my first name. It's Myles Daniel Smith. And I grown up from until I got into high school, I was called Danny. So everybody who knows me all up through high school knows me as Danny. My dad's Myles, and so I wasn't called Myles as a kid. I was called Danny. And one of my brother's friends found out my name was Myles and thought it was funny. So he told some other kids at school, and they said, oh, his name is Myles. That's funny. That's a cool name. One of my brother's friends questioned that. Is his name? What's his name? Milo? They call him Milo. And so everybody started calling me Milo. But it was just a formality with my dad and me when I was a kid, because he was Myles. And so just to make it, less confusing, I went by my middle name. And that's what I'm assuming. They always call me Danny growing up. But when I got a bank account and I started a job, I signed my name Myles D. Smith, so people professionally see my name on an application or a list. Oh, it's Myles Smith, and so half people know me as Myles, half people know me as Danny. My wife calls me Danny, but she introduced me as Myles because majority of people nowadays know me as Myles. I answer to both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I always thought it was your fire department people knew you as Myles, and your people outside of the fire department knew you as Danny.
That's not purposeful. No purpose to it. Just turned out.
Yeah, I like it.
I got one more piece of history that I want to ask you about. Did you ever work, or I should say, was Station 1 where it is now when you got hired?
It was. They had the dispatch center in there. The front office was our dispatch center, and we used to cook for the dispatchers too. And they had a stainless steel tray that they got from the jail that has these little compartments on it, and they bring that out and we'd fill up their tray for dinner, and they go back in the front and do dispatch.
What are those plugs? I know those plugs are still there at Station 1. If nobody knew what they were, and then I think you were the one who said, "Oh yeah, that's where the dispatchers used
probably,
to
in the front there. Yeah,
plug in to talk to whichever station they're talking to." And the Clock Tower Inn was not in service as a fire station when you worked for the fire department?
I worked there as a reserve. We had another reserve program, a civil defense fire department, fire service reserve program that they did a little bit. And I worked it down there for a little while. That's
pretty cool.
Station. Yeah, it was pretty.
That's a piece of history a lot of our newer guys don't know for a long time. Then you tell them that was a fire station at one point, and they kind of put it all together. So that's cool too. Yeah.
One last story. I don't know if you want to tell it. I remember you telling it. Something about an anchor on Main Street.
Oh man, that was before I was a fireman. Yeah, come on. Okay, well, it's now Spencer McKenzie's fish place there on Thompson across from Corrales. Well, there was a big anchor. It used to be called the Galley Drive-In. It was a hamburger place, and then it became Kodani's Japanese restaurant, and then they left, and now it's Spencer McKenzie's. Well, I lived just a block away. And my brother was living on a boat in Santa Barbara going to UCSB, and it was his 21st birthday, and I didn't have any money to get him anything. I said, well, I'm going to get him that anchor because there's a big Popeye-style anchor that was chained to the front of this restaurant. And if you look at it now, it's even shaped like a boat. It had a bow on it and out of concrete, and chained to the front of this thing was this 50-pound anchor. And so I had the great idea that I'm going to go steal this thing because they weren't using it for the theme for the restaurant anymore. They didn't need it. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to give it to my brother as a prank birthday gift because he lives on a boat. The anchor was as big as his boat. And so I go down there and I had a black turtleneck sweater and a watch cap on. I drove my girlfriend's Camaro down there and I parked it right in front of the restaurant. And I climbed under there with a hacksaw. And I hacksawed this thing off, and I grabbed it and threw it in my girlfriend's car and took it back to my house, which was just a block away. And I'm right on Thompson Boulevard. I'm admiring it in the living room, and I look out, and damn, the sheriff is right there, and is there I guess it was the police. It must have been the police at that time. The police are out in front, and they're feeling the hood of my girlfriend's car to see if it's warm. And I go, oh, I'm in trouble. I got busted. So I go and change my clothes really quick, like I'm going to get away with this, right? And the guy comes to the door and knocks on the door and says, have you been using this car lately? I said, no. And he says, where's the anchor? It wasn't very convincing. I said, oh, it's right here. And damn it, they didn't arrest me. They took me to jail. They didn't take me to jail. They took me to the police station, which was a trailer down on Main and Ventura Avenue is where the old police station used to be. It's still a vacant lot now, but they had a couple of portable trailers there. And they handcuffed me to a chair for an hour or so, and they filled out this thing, and then they kicked me loose and sent me home. But I had to pay an $80 fine, and I was on a year's probation for stealing. And and they took the anchor, and they took my hacksaw, and I never got the hacksaw back, and the anchor is probably in some police officer's backyard right now.
That's a great story. Well, that was a fun conversation. It was good to reminisce with you guys. It's good to hear some of the history and some of the stuff that I've never even heard before. So I appreciate you both coming on. That was cool.
I enjoyed this.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
I'll second what Jason said. I'm excited that we got to document some of those stories. So everyone's going to hear those stories now, which are all fun and good. And
there's plenty of characters out there that have plenty of good stories. I'll come back sometime and tell you about Doug Carragher because that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask anybody who Doug Carragher was, and nobody's going to know who he was because all those people are gone.
At some point, We just need a microphone around a table with some retired guys, and we could fill up an episode for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both for coming. Much appreciated.
All right. Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, what a fun episode that was, listening to some of those stories from Myles and his mentorship with his stepson, Austin. Some of the stuff he brought up just immediately brought back all kinds of memories for me personally. Hearing about some of the retirees that we've all heard the names of, and some of them, and we do know, and some of them we've never met before. One of the things that stood out to me historically with the fire department was when Myles quickly touched on the fire truck used to be just two people, an engineer and a firefighter, and they would just go to only specific calls where they were needed for the extra help with the truck.
Yeah, times have definitely changed in that regard for sure. I was pretty pumped up and excited about that fish recipe because that recipe is like legendary at the fire department, and it's not written down anywhere. And I mean, I'm a little shocked that it was as simple as he said it was, but nonetheless, it was awesome. Lots of laughter, and I think that's just indicative of firefighters telling stories. Somebody's inevitably on the ground laughing and having a good time. But yeah, great. I'm excited about documenting all these stories because these stories are going to live on forever now. Like, people that have never even know who Myles is are going to know now because of this podcast. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, that was a good podcast, and excited we got to do it with him.
Yeah, one of the things that we didn't talk about is whenever Myles makes that recipe, it's over fish that he's caught himself. The first time I had that recipe, I can remember exactly. I was at Station 2. I ate way more than I should have, and we immediately got a structure fire on the avenue afterwards. Doesn't that always seem how it goes?
Oh, yeah. It wouldn't be the first time someone's... Yeah, never mind. We'll leave that one out of the story, I guess. We'll leave that to people's imagination. But anyway, yeah, awesome. Thanks for doing the podcast with me, Jason. That was great.
Yeah, it was a fun one. Thanks, Peter.